Hello everyone, this is Dr. Purnima, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Vasant Kanya Mahavidyalaya, Banaras Hindu University. And we have reached week 4, module 4 of Postmodern Art and Literature, Theory and Practice. And we are discussing the futuristic trends in postmodernism. And in the third lecture of this module, we are going to discuss science fiction and science movies. So, what basically is science fiction? So, science fiction, by definition, it is fiction based on imagined future. So, it is not actually there, but we are imagining a future of technology, science, space travel, and other speculative elements. So, we are actually imagining a future with the fiction and films. Then, what it is often exploring is what if scenarios, that what if we make certain choices, what it will lead to. So we have very various kinds of fiction that are coming up, similar to like space exploration is there, time travel is there. So if with new technology maybe we can explore space, because Elon Musk and other various companies, they are working on space exploration. So we can travel to Mars, or maybe we have colonies in Mars. So these speculative fictions are not very far fetched, and they may be here in very near future. So time travel is there, artificial intelligence is there. We can see that how artificial intelligence has entered into our lives, and we are relying heavily on artificial intelligence. We are relying on deep learning, machine learning. So all these new aspects of technology will somehow alter our future, or somehow affect our future. So this if we have to have a future ready society, we have to think about the speculative fictions, because what they are trying to say is what are the choices we are making and what it may lead us to. So, and then it is also talking about alien contact, because when we are trying to make colonies outside the earth, we think that there may be more superpowers of other races, alien races living in other planets, exoplanets. So this is again a problem that comes up. So there may be alien contact, or there may be alien invasion, and that is also leading to dystopic fictions and dystopic films that are talking about alien contact. Then we have both dystopia and utopia. From here now, where are we going? So this is a time of constant change, big paced, high paced changes. And so either the society is going towards a much better world, it is going to be a utopia, or it is going towards a worse stage from this. So anyhow, we are not going to remain in the status quo. And these speculative fictions are also talking about a world which is either going to be a worst place or a better place than this. And then we are also talking about the ethics of science and technology. So science and technology, they are developing, but are we thinking about that what would be the results of such kind of development? Because most of the time we are not thinking about consequences, and we are using technologies without even realizing how far fetched the consequences will be for the coming generations. Then when we see look at the rise of science fiction is not something new. It is not something that just comes in the postmodern age, but it has already been there. But it is most used and mostly perceived by postmodern authors as an important technique. So when we can see in the early works, we very important example is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and in 1818 she writes Frankenstein, where she creates a monster, and this monster is created by the scientific invention that is being done. So when this monster is also asking us that what we are creating, how we are creating, it is also discussing the ethics of creation, of scientific creation, and is also discussing that who is a monster. So what is, because it doesn't suits our temperament, or it is different from our benefits, so the person may become a monster for us. So this whole debate of artificial intelligence is also about, it may turn, the whole development may turn into man versus machine instead of man and machine together. So, and then earlier also we have The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. It is also one of those novels that explores the time machine, and it talks about moving forward and backward in time. And when then we have the golden age of science fiction. So in 1930s to 1950s, we see that there is a peak of science fiction, and we have writers like Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, and they're all delving into science fiction. And then we see that in there is a new wave of science fiction that comes up in 1960s and 70s, and we have writers like Ursula K. Le Guin and we have Philip K. Dick. They are very important writers of postmodern literature. Then we have books like Dune by Frank Herbert, and Dune is a place that is sandy, but it is also in a futuristic space, and the whole setting of the Dune also gives it a very hyper real situation. So science fiction are always kept in at a distant time or a distant space, so that whatever is happening in the fiction, we take it to be real. Then The Foundation by Isaac Asimov. This is one of the seminal texts of postmodern. We can look at it as postmodern because though it is written a bit earlier, but it has all the elements of postmodern fiction. And then what we see in this book is psychohistorians. So these are people who are speculating about the future. They are reading history, they are reading the psychology of people, and they can predict the future by reading psychology and history. Then we have encyclopedists. What are the encyclopedists doing? They are creating, they are capturing all the content they have with them, and they're creating encyclopedia for the future generation and future learners. And then we have the mayors and the traders. So what actually the prototypes that Isaac Asimov has created are the people that we see around ourselves. So the when we see the Simpson and we say that Simpson has already foretold certain things, actually are the Simpsons doing? They are actually analyzing the data, and they're analyzing the psychology and history, and then they are predicting the future through it. So such kind of psychohistorians are not very far-fetched in future. Encyclopedias and rise of various kinds of online encyclopedias and online repositories are also very similar to the encyclopedias of Isaac Asimov. Then we have the mayors and the traders, the rulers and the buyers and sellers who are selling with the outside galaxy. Then we have a very important work, 1984 by George Orwell. And in 1984, George Orwell used for the first time the term that Big Brother is watching you. And he talked about the decline of socialism. And now if we see in the New World Order and when we see in the postmodern time, socialism has become dysfunctional, and the countries who are actually following socialism are only Russia and China. And there also we have seen the dark faces of socialism, and capitalism has been the alternative that the whole world is choosing, and this capitalism is not going to go away. So the socialism will end into something dark and bleak, was already predicted by George Orwell in 1984. Then when we look at movies or TVs, we see that there are movies like Star Wars, Blade Runner, The Matrix. So what they are talking about, they are talking about intergalactic spaces, and they are talking about humanoids. We are talking about a matrix where we the whole world that we think to be real is not real. So all, and then we have Black Mirror, The Expanse, The Interstellar. So all of these science fiction movies and TV shows, we will see that it is either in future or it is in outer space, and they are creating the whole distinction between real and unreal are blurred in the works of science fiction and movies. Then, when we look at the subgenres of science fiction, we see that there is a rise of cyberpunk fiction. Then there is a lot of space opera that is written. Then we have hard versus soft science fiction. We have dystopian or utopian fiction. So either yes, either the world will be a worse place or a better place. Then we have a lot of themes that is being repeated of alien invasion or the world being at threat. Then there is military sci-fi that is talking about superior warfares, rise of new artilleries, arms and ammunition. Then there is climate fiction also, because when the in the world of mass production, we are producing more and more and more without thinking about the end result. So somehow or the other, we are not thinking about the effects on the environment, the effects on Earth. So that's why also we are talking about an environmental catastrophe or environmental destruction. So climate fiction is also there, which is talking about that the world may end if we are not very sincere about how we are using our arms and ammunition, or if we are not stopping mass production. Then it also reflects on society's hopes and fears, because we as a society are living in a world that is facing a lot of is facing global warming, it is facing threats, it is facing after COVID-19 the hopes and fears again came forward, and people had to think again about what choices we are making in our personal and day-to-day lives. So it also explores ethical dilemmas of technology. Example, Never Let Me Go, what happens in Murakami's world, there are these children who go to a good boarding school, but suddenly they realize that they are not real people, but they are clones, and their organs are used for grafting, so their lives actually don't matter. So this dystopic fiction makes us realize the whole question. It questions the whole technology of cloning. It also talks about that how ethical we are when we are making a scientific discovery or invention. And it also talks about free will. So, and it also talks about the world we are living in. It may be a very surreal or hyper real place, and we may not have any real freedom. And such genres, subgenres of science fiction, that also encourages innovation and imagination, and they predict or inspire real technology. So sometimes what happens, that science fiction are ahead of its time, and they are imagining that what could happen. So a lot of movies were made about artificial intelligence and robotics and space travel, and when they were being made, it was thought to be very far-fetched. But now all these AI and robotics and space travel has become an everyday reality for us. So they have already predicted the future for us. And then it also raises these science fiction genres. They also raise awareness about environmental and societal issues. So the moral, ethical dilemmas and the environmental dilemmas that new technologies can pose towards us are all talked about in these kinds of science fictions. Then, when we have discussed earlier genres, we have talked about cyberpunk. So, what actually is cyberpunk? So, cyberpunk is a subgenre of science fiction, and it is focusing on advanced technology and societal collapse. So, the key phrase that can be used for cyberpunk fiction is high tech and low life. So, technology is increasing, but the quality of life somewhere is decreasing. And then what it is actually talking about is cybernetics and artificial intelligence, and it is talking about corporate control, and it is talking about government corruption. So how we are thinking about a world that can be controlled, because there is will be a lot of increased surveillance, and even our mobile phones, or everything that we are using, every device that we are using, every internet that we are logging in, we are creating our data, and all those data are being monitored and they are being examined, and that would lead to a greater government control, because government will have access to all our informations and data. And that will also lead to a lot of corporate control, because big corporate companies also have access to all our data, and that would also lead to more of data mining, and this kind will can also control our choices and also control our emotions. And during elections and in simple advertisements also, our minds are being controlled very much by this rise of cybernetics and AI and data technologies. Then we are living in a world of urban decay, and we are living in neon ranged cities. See, in art and literature, whatever is reflected is actually the reflection of life. So when we talk about art, that neon lights are used as art. So there are also the cities around us. If we look at the urban scape around us, there are a lot of big artificial lights, and even at night we have so much light, so the real concept of day and night is gone, even that is being blurred. So night is full of so much light and all the neon lights at night. So, and it is also about urban decay. So urban scapes have been distorted, landscapes have been distorted, there has been excessive mining in areas, excessive consumption in areas, and there can be a total collapse of a place if we go on just using and misusing the Mother Earth. Then cyberpunk is also talking about identity, hacking, and rebellion. So, example, we can take Resident Evil. So, in Resident Evil, there is a whole cyber system that is watching you, and you cannot escape the system. So, the outer planet is dead. The Mother Earth is dead, and people are being kept as they are kept in places. They are kept in enclosures like prisoners, and they are being monitored all the time, and the outer world is totally destroyed. So this is the kind of future that we are going to witness. So this, the cyberpunk fiction, though it is questioning the ethics of technology and the newer, it is exploring newer technologies, it is also talking about how dystopic or how dangerous the near future can be for us. Then, when we look at the rise of cyberpunk fiction, we see that the roots starts in the 1980s, and it is inspired by the tech boom of the time of 1980s, and then a punk counterculture is created, and film noir, new kinds of films are rising, and then we see that there are various influential authors that come into scene of cyberpunk fiction. So we have William Gibson, who is writing The Neuromancer. We have Philip K. Dick, and then in visuals of these films we will see that there's a lot of use of neon lights, and then there's use of rain-soaked streets, there are cybernetic implants is done, and humanoids are created, cyborgs are created, and the settings would be usually mega cities, huge cities with all the new technologies. There would be rise of slums, and there would be cyberspace. So cyberspace where it is more about the technological space. And then when we compare it with utopian sci-fi or space operas, so the space operas are written for outer space, and then there will be focus on earth, there will be focus on near future, and then sometimes there would be realism that would tell that the earth can be destroyed by the rise of technology, and if the technology get unchecked, it can try to control us. Then what is this science fiction leading to? So science fiction is leading to a post-humanist or a transhumanist society. So what is actually transhumanism? So transhumanism is enhancing humans through technology. So example, we can have implants, or we can have artificial intelligence symbiosis. What is post-humanism? Is imagining existence beyond humanity entirely. So we can have AI life, we can have conscious in non-human form. So this is again with rise of artificial intelligence, this consciousness of non-human forms is also becoming talked about, is being talked about a lot. So we see that we see that there are parallels with real world tech. So we see artificial intelligence, we see surveillance, we see social inequality, and we see that warnings about unchecked power and lost humanity is there. So we have a new wave of cyberpunk fiction, like we have altered carbon, we have Black Mirror, and we see that there is evolution of subgenres of these cyberpunk fictions also, like solar punk fiction or post cyberpunk fiction also is on the rise. So, what is actually this post human fiction doing? So, it is deconstructing the natural human. So, we see that it is talking about the autonomy of artificial intelligence and consciousness. Then it is talking about cyborg identity and body modification. So, your body is controlled by technology. Then we are talking about digital immortality, where we can capture our consciousness, we can save our consciousness as data, and we can transfer our consciousness, and we can live by transferring the consciousness. Then comes alien intelligence. They can have more intelligence than us, and there can be societies which are more intelligent than us. And then we have the post-human metaphor, that the humans are no longer humans, but they are added or enhanced by artificial intelligence. Then we have deconstruction of the natural human. So human being is no longer his true self, but is altered by the artificial intelligence. Then we have movies like Neuromancer by William Gibson, and it discusses a very important theme of mind uploading and AI evolution. So, human mind can be treated like computers, and where uploads can be done on mind. So this also shows that your mind, human mind, which we give so much importance, will be altered if such technologies develop. Then we have Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? So this is also about talking about it by Philip K. Dick, and it talks about human versus replicant. So can androids have similar dreams, and they can also think independent of on themselves? So this also leads to the ethical moral questions, that if the artificial intelligence or androids can think better than human beings, then they may try to counter human beings, or they can replace human beings altogether. Then we have Ursula K. Le Guin's The Left Hand of Darkness, which talks about a post gender society where there is no gender, and in that way, it is also questioning gender norms and patriarchal society. Then we have Lilith Brood's Octavia E. Butler's Lilith's Brood, and it also talks about alien or human hybridization. So, this mixing up of human race with other races can create superhumans, and they can be very different from the human race today, and it may lead to the extinction of the present human race. So when we discuss about postmodernism, and we see look at posthumanism, we see that it is a deconstruction of humanism, and that's why they deconstruction and posthumanism, they go hand in hand. So what is that we are deconstructing in posthumanism? So basically, we are deconstructing the human identity. So characters may lose or transform their sense of self, as in works featuring altered consciousness or artificial bodies. So they are no longer the same person. So the human identity is being questioned through post-humanism. Then we see that there are technological and biological enhancements. So we see that the exploring the potential and dangers of human augmentation, like cyborgs or genetically engineered beings, they can alter the whole existence of human beings. Then we see that there is a lot of fragmented narratives. So we see that we have unreliable narrators or non-linear storytelling, and it reflects on the unstable nature of post-human existence. And then we have alienation and disconnection. So post-human characters often experience isolation due to their altered states, and they are reflecting upon the postmodern themes of disconnection and loss of meaning. So because there is a loss of meaning in the present times, so deconstruction also is very relevant or pertinent for post-humanism. Then when we look at the works that we were talking about in science fiction, then we look at Neuromancer by William Gibson in 1984. So it is one of the foundational works of cyberpunk and post-humanist literature. And the protagonist in this book is Case. He's a hacker who navigates cyberspace of the Matrix, and the novel explores themes of artificial intelligence and human machine hybridization and the potential transcendence of human consciousness. Then we have The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. It comes a bit earlier, it comes in 1915, but it is very relevant for the postmodern literature because it is, while it is not strictly postmodern, Kafka's novella introduces themes of posthumanism because this is about a man who imagines himself to be a cockroach or an insect, and who would later explore particularly the transformation. So it is about the metamorphosis or transformation of the human body into something alien and something different. And it is also monstrous as Gregory Samsa turns into the giant insect, and it questions the boundaries of humanity and identity in a world that rejects the other. So what is different? We look at an insect as different from us, so we can destroy their world. So that is the problem that is raised in Metamorphosis. And it is also a psychoanalytical or psychological reading of Gregory Samsa's mind, where he feels that he is alienated and he doesn't fit into the society that he is living in. Then we have The Wind Up Girl by Paolo Bacigalupi, 2009, and is set in a post-climate change world. And this novel deals with genetic engineering, and it talks about bioterrorism, that how biowarfare can start. Even during COVID-19, there was this question of biowarfare, or when there was the use of anthrax. So biowarfare or bioterrorism is not something that is very futuristic, but it is something that can happen in very near future. And it is a fusion of human and non-human life form, and the post-human future it depicts is shaped by biotechnology rather than cybernetics. So another dimension of the science fiction is biotechnology. One of it is cybernetics, but biotechnology, cloning, genetic engineering, all these are also important concerns of futuristic fiction. Then Oryx and Craig by Margaret Atwood. It came in 2003, and this novel explores the consequences of genetic engineering and the creation of post-human beings. So when we create post-human beings in laboratories, they will be different from the human beings. And it talks about the Quakers, and the protagonist Snowman. He reflects on the end of humanity as it was known and the rise of genetically altered life forms. So these if we are creating superhumans and superhuman beings, we must realize that they may obliterate the already existing human forms. So we are be creating our own death. Then when we talk about such speculative fiction, we cannot talk further without talking about Altered Carbon by Richard K. Morgan in 2002. So it is set in a future where consciousness can be transferred into different bodies called this is sleeves, and you can just transfer your it is like data, you're transferring it through a pen drive. So this novel explores the concept of identity beyond the physical body, and it raises question about immortality. So if we can preserve our consciousness, somehow we will become immortals, and we can preserve our memory and what it means to be truly human. Then Do Androids Dream, Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick, 1968. And this novel explores artificial intelligence. It talks about human consciousness and the meaning of humanity through the figure of the android. And it is a cornerstone of post-humanism, as it deals with the question of whether machines can be human and what distinguishes them from people. And then we have The Blazing World by Margaret Cavendish, 1666. And it talks about a proto post-human text that imagines a world where humans and machines merge, exploring themes of intellectual and physical transformation. Then we have solar punk fiction. These are basically utopic fictions. So we have Sunworld, Stories of Solar Punk and Eco Speculation, 2017. And they are an anthropology of short stories and poems showcasing the diversity and creative potential of solar punk. Then we have Glass and Gardens. It is again a solar punk summers, edited by Serena Oliveri, and it talks about, it is a short fiction that imagines brighter futures through science, cooperation, and sustainability. Then we have The Ministry of for the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson, and it is not explicitly solar punk, but it's strongly aligned with solar punk ideals, and it talks again about global cooperation, climate intervention, policy change, and radical resilience. And if we don't practice all these things, because we don't usually think about utopia, we think about a dystopic world, the collapse of the world, the collapse of the universe. So such works are giving us an alternative world we can actually live with happiness. And then we have Walk Away by Cory Doctorow, and it talks about a near future, post scarcity society where people leave behind capitalism to build open source, decentralized, and eco conscious communities. So, this is what the cyber fiction can lead to: a solar punk fiction, a better world, and a utopic world. So, that's all for today. Thank you.